Well then, we are back, and today it's all about the direwolves. I mean, you guys have seen like the cute little direwolf pups, right? And if you haven't, well, do check that out because they are so adorable. Or rather, the greywolf direwolf thingy. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to this video. And if you would like me to react to other stuff, please let me know down in the comments or on the Discord itself. I appreciate it. Also, birthday, Friday, May 9th, okay? Be there. There's a waiting room. Let's get the video started. If you've managed to make it this far, just, I don't know, I guess the word is, awoo? Awoo!
It's all over the news. Outside's modding community has successfully managed to mod the Direwolf back into the game as a playable character again. While obviously this announcement generated a ton of discourse,
So are we cooked? I don't know why that was funny. Oh man. Oh yeah.
around the scientific and ethical implications of resurrecting extinct characters from previous balance patches, what I want to discuss is the potential impact this could have on the competitive metagame. Just how overpowered was the Direwolf back during the Ice Age, and where are they most likely to place on the tier list in the current meta? First, let's discuss the Direwolf's base stats. The easiest way to do this is to compare them to the Greywolf. So the most obvious difference is their size, as they were on average a solid 40% larger than the Greywolf.
Oh, look at that fluff. Look at the adorable fluff. Oh, yes. This just makes me miss my dog. Okay, I don't have a dog the size of a direwolf or a wolf, but like, you know, the German Shepherd, still a pretty big dog.
Which gave them a much higher HP stack. This allowed them to tank hits that would potentially one-shot a modern wolf, a necessity given how powerful their hunting targets were. Their power stat was also significantly higher, even greater than you'd expect based on their increased size alone. Their broader, heavier skulls granted them a dramatically stronger bite force, enough to easily crack a bone. This is where the Direwolf's stat superiority ends though. The Direwolf had a lower intelligence stat than modern wolves, on account of their slightly lower brain to body mass ratio.
Does that matter though if like the current ones are sprung from like the Greywolves?
Not so low as to preclude them from using pack hunting tactics, but definitely low enough that their ability to sense danger and avoid obvious traps apparently wasn't as sharp. Their legs were thicker and comparatively shorter, making them a bit less nimble and far less capable of distance running than the modern Greywolf. For stealth, the Direwolf's bright white coat gave it a massive stealth bonus on snowy terrain, but was otherwise a bit worse than the versatile camouflage of the greys and browns of the modern wolf. Their perception abilities were more or less comparable, and the same goes for the defense stat, as both relied on their thick fur as a form of light armor. As alluded to before, for direwolves, the metagame during the Ice Age was basically constant boss rush mode. Each hunt would center around trying to bring down one of the Ice Age's many behemoths, something like a bison or a giant ground sloth. Their stat spread was excellent for this type of game plan. Their high damage, blood loss inflicting bites, and pack hunting tactics were a devastating counter to the high HP herbivores of the time. Their lower mobility was less of an issue than you might expect, since most of their hunting targets weren't going to run away anyway. That said, even with their boosted HP compared to Greywolves, engaging Pleistocene megafauna head-on was extremely risky, and could very easily have resulted in getting sent back to your respawn point if you got careless. But the larger issue was the Direwolf's matchups versus the other apex predators of the Ice Age. After securing a kill, characters like the short-faced bear and Smilodon would often bully them away from the meat, and could easily delete their entire HP bar if they tried to fight back.
Damn. They had it rough, don't they? Poor wolvies.
Because of this poor matchup spread, direwolves were often forced to eat as quickly as possible, or to wait for the more dangerous players to finish looting before getting to reap the rewards of their
don't you hate it when you're still somehow the smallest of your runt and you gotta wait? I don't know why like all these graphics make me think of Elden Ring so badly. Like all I can think of is like that stupid big ass bear that you fight. When I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I can see the inspiration.
Their own successful hunts. In this scenario, their incredible bite force had the bonus effect of letting them get more value out of a carcass than other predators could. As even after bears and saber-tooths were finished with it, there would still be plenty of bone marrow available for the wolves. In this regard, the direwolf has a lot in common with the spotted hyena, being a powerful hunter that can also pivot to a scavenging playstyle whenever necessary. However, even though they have similarly powerful bone-crushing bites, only the hyena spec'd into the specialized durable molars for crunching on bone.
We're not the same. Man, he's killing it with like the little text.
Direwolves have much less specialized teeth, made more for just general meat shearing and inflicting bleed damage. Even with their higher bite force, over-reliance on bone crunching resulted in direwolves burning through the durability of their primary weapon, dulling its effectiveness in future combat scenarios. This was a massive long-term liability, and as a consequence, the direwolf unfortunately had a very low lifespan compared to the greywolf. But obviously the meta has shifted a lot since the Ice Age. So what would the direwolf's matchup spread look like now? Well, the biggest change between then and now is the lack of megafauna. Gigantism is simply not seen as being necessary in the game's competitive landscape anymore, and so tailoring your character specifically to counter that type of build just isn't that potent of an advantage now. In fact, I would guess that their lower agility would offset any power advantage direwolves would bring to the table. Most of the current meta's key herbivores, like deer, rely solely on speed and perception to survive, and would be very difficult for a slower, bulkier wolf to catch. But with that said, direwolves would have a much easier time protecting any quarry they did manage to bring down. While grizzly bears would of course remain a threat, the matchup is nowhere near as much of a blowout as the short-faced bear was versus direwolves. In fact, even a pack of gray wolves can sometimes hold their own versus brown bears. And the direwolf's main adversary, the saber-tooth, has no modern analog in the North America server.
I do wonder, would they be releasing them in an area full of like bears that help like stabilize or not? Because like we have like a ton of bears, a ton over here. So it's like
Large cats are essentially a non-factor, while mid-sized cats like the puma would be obliterated 1v1. However, the last matchup they need to worry about is a lot more interesting. What would the matchup be like between the direwolf and the greywolf? On its surface, it might seem like an obvious blowout. Direwolves are more powerful and can take more damage. And sure, in 1v1 combat, I don't think there'd be any doubt which character comes out ahead. But in terms of survival, the equation shifts dramatically. Direwolves were already struggling during the Ice Age. They were a popular pick for sure, but for many of the reasons already discussed, they were no top tier. Their core strategy only works well in a server filled with slow, giant targets. Greywolves, on the other hand, have much more flexibility in their diet. When the opportunity arises for a pack to come together and bring down a large beast, greywolves of course can and do rise to the occasion. But, because of their smaller stature, they can subsist on smaller prey when necessary. Builds like the rabbit, beaver, and
they're more
fish
resilient.
can fill the gaps if there's ever a lack of large prey on the server. Direwolves, in addition to being too slow to reliably catch agile sprinters like rabbits, would not be able to thrive off of that diet. There's a reason that most other large predators function at least partially as generalist omnivores, with a broad skill set that can make use of a wide variety of food sources.
Minecraft eating sounds though. I do wonder if they can adapt in like their hunting strategies. Because like, there's also the fact of they don't know the ecosystem anymore. They don't know what's out there. They don't know like what's okay or not okay by default, or like what's harmful. There's like, imagine you lost your memory and you're sent outside. I'm like really curious how that goes with the wolfies. Do they just have it in their genes? That instinct of like the knowledge, that seeking out things that they could potentially eat?
Lastly, there's one final major difference between the Ice Age meta and the modern meta, and that is the centralization around the human build. The Greywolf is the literal best example in the game of a character that turned the threat of the new top tier into an opportunity, becoming the human's first choice for party member and hunting teammate. This is primarily due to the wolf's intelligence, exemplified by its ability to cooperate. Cooperate with its wolf teammates, cooperate with ravens asking for help chasing away rivals from carcasses, and of course cooperate with humans looking for help guarding their camps and chasing down prey. Direwolves were less cooperative, even with each other. With direwolves being both less intelligent and requiring more food to survive, it's unlikely they'd have ever been able to slot into a human's party. So ultimately, I do believe the wolves already established in the meta will be able to hold their ground against these fearsome Ice Age predators. After all, they did it once before.
Oh my
Grey wolves were added
god.
to the game around the start of the Ice Age, and survived through the entire glaciation period and into modern day. There's little reason to expect
Interesting.
these resurrected direwolves would fare any better against the tried and true grey wolf now.
How many times I gotta teach you the lesson, old man? Oh my god. Oh, the memes. So good.
Or is there? The fundamental assumption we've been making for this whole video is that these newly modded characters are in fact authentic direwolves.
But they're
how
not,
exactly
yeah.
did this group of data miners and modders go about reversing the removal of direwolves from the character select screen? You could be forgiven for assuming they simply got their hands on a former direwolf player's old save data and just copy-pasted the entire thing onto a fresh save file. If
Wouldn't
they'd done
that be nice,
I would
huh?
completely agree that they had indeed re-added the direwolf full stop. But no, if you take a look at the modder's dev blog, it appears their actual methodology was to take the Greywolf's game data and edit it to buff the Greywolf in a few specific areas, to make it similar in size and power to the original Direwolf. Now, whether or not this counts as a true Direwolf is kind of up to your own interpretation.
So in gaming terms, would the direwolf be an MTX for the grey wolf? An MTX with a bit of power added to it, a pay-to-win upgrade. When you put it like that.
If you modded a horse to give it a horn, did you make a rhino? If you modded a beluga whale to give it a tusk, did you make a narwhal? I can kind of see both sides of the argument here, but what I think is more important for our discussion is that these modders don't seem to have
that's
programmed
funny.
in any of the direwolf's former limitations. They buffed the wolf's size and strength, sure. They even gave it a stark white coat, giving it a huge stealth bonus on snowy terrain, similar to the polar bear. But as far as I can tell, they did not nerf its mobility by giving it proportionally shorter legs, nor did they nerf the wolf's intelligence by giving it a proportionally smaller cranial cavity. And this is where I do think there's a genuine risk of these modded characters becoming broken, either in the overpowered sense or legitimately unplayable sense. They could be extremely overpowered, possessing all the advantages of the dire wolf with zero trade-offs. But it's also possible that this modded build is so overtuned that its energy upkeep costs will be completely unmanageable. Brain size in particular is one of those traits that can easily
Interesting.
sink a build if the payoff doesn't materialize, as brain size is one of the most calorically demanding traits in the game. The original Direwolf player base already ran into this roadblock at the end of the Ice Age, and this was without the increased energy needs of a larger brain. At the end of the Ice Age, the devs patched the game precisely to punish greedy, overtuned builds like this, and it was the compact efficiency of the Grey Wolf, Coyote, and other small carnivores that kept them in the game while the Direwolf faced extinction. We may
That's
never
an
know which of
interesting
these extremes ends
perspective,
up
to
being
be
true,
fair.
as the modders have so far maintained that these super wolves will only be playable on their private server, where presumably
Their private server. You know, that's what they all say until they go to the press for a release where they're like, so someone broke in and escaped with the specimens, or they breached containment. Wouldn't that be something?
their massive energy demands will be met regardless of their
Oh,
viability.
look at the cutie!
Anyway, there's still way too much we
They're
don't
still
know about these
adorable,
modded
though.
super wolves for me to say for sure whether or not I think they're actually going to be overpowered.
I'm sorry, I'm a wolf simp. you probably can't tell by the fact that I'm a wolf VTuber, right? I mean, you think I'm a fox or a cat, some of you. I don't know why a cat, but like, yeah, I like wolves from a distance. I don't think I necessarily like wolves next to me, but I like wolves from a distance.
Even that bit about their increased brain size is heavily speculative. I don't actually know if the code they edited actually results in increased brain size. From what I can tell, it's at least indirectly tied to brain size, but without directly measuring these super wolves' brain sizes and metabolisms, it's impossible to say for sure. If you or anyone you know is a part of this modding community, I'd love to get in touch. They've been hinting at the possibility of doing something similar for the mammoth, so I'll try to keep you all updated on the latest modding shenanigans.
Honestly, like this entire thing brought to my attention the woolly rats, and I'm just like, I need those adorable fur balls in my life. It's really cool and interesting to see like what people are doing with science and like how they're playing around with genes. I think that was my favorite part of biology, like the gene classes. They were really, really fascinating and interesting to me as a teen in high school. That being said, I can also see like concerns that people are having and like the problems. And it's very fascinating to look at it from the perspective of actual food consumption and like how much the change brings to them, because I didn't think about that, like how much more food they would need to eat due to their size and everything, while maintaining like all the other aspects of the base wolf that was used.
Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks again for
Mm.
watching, and as always, good luck out there.
Da 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 da. Thank you so much for the video. And to you, my dear bread pop, my dear viewer. Thank you, thank you, thank you for hanging out until the end. I appreciate you. I shall see you tomorrow for another video, and if not, remember my birthday is Friday. For May 9th, I will be debuting a new model. It's also on YouTube, so if you do not like Twitch, you can watch the debut on YouTube. I do recommend Twitch because it has like more interaction, or rather like there are built-in tools that let you interact directly with the model better and stuff. So yeah. But that being said, don't feel like you have to. I hope you enjoy the model debut as well. It's like a super different model from anything I've had. So I know it's not for everyone, and that's okay. But yeah, I'm so excited because it features my 2.0. It features my 2.0 design, and I'm like, it's been in the works for almost 2 years. Exciting. Okay, bye.